The air was filled with the clatter of machinery and the shrieks of riders as the Superman Tower of Power shot upward, its carriage rattling on thick steel cables against the summer sky. It was June 21st, 2007, a warm Thursday evening at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville. Families wandered the midway, music played from loudspeakers, and the high-pitched laughter of thrill-seekers cut across the park. Then, in an instant, laughter turned to screams. A sharp crack split the air as one of the ride's heavy cables snapped loose. It whipped downward like a steel whip, striking riders as they sat strapped into their seats. In the chaos, a 13-year-old girl named Caitlin Lassiter was struck in the legs. When the ride jolted to a stop, her feet had been severed. Witnesses froze in horror. Some screamed for help. Others turned away, unable to process what they were seeing. In the center of the amusement park, beneath the towering red and yellow frame of the Superman ride, a young girl's life had been changed forever. The Superman Tower of Power had been a signature attraction at Kentucky Kingdom. Originally opened in 1995 under the name Hellevator, the ride was a typical drop tower design, manufactured by Intamin. Riders were seated in a ring around a tall vertical tower, secured by over-the-shoulder harnesses and lap belts. Cables lifted the gondola hundreds of feet into the air before releasing it in a sudden free fall. The thrill came from speed, gravity, and the stomach-dropping sensation of falling straight down at highway speeds. The ride had been a staple of the park for over a decade, and to most visitors it seemed safe. Thousands of rides had ended without incident, until that night. Caitlin Lassiter had gone to the park like countless other teens on summer break. She was seated with friends and other riders on the Superman Tower when the cable failed. Witnesses described the moment as surreal. They heard the sharp pop of snapping steel and saw the cable flailing violently, slashing through the seats. Some riders were struck with bruises and cuts, but Caitlin bore the brunt of the impact. The cable wrapped around her legs, pinning them against the ride's structure. When the gondola descended, her legs were trapped. By the time the ride reached the bottom, both of her feet were severed above the ankles. The scene on the ground was chaos. Park employees rushed to secure the area. Riders screamed for help, still locked into their seats. Bystanders scrambled to call 911. Emergency medical technicians arrived within minutes, pushing through the shocked crowd with equipment. They stabilized Caitlin and rushed her to University Hospital in Louisville, one of the few facilities with a trauma team capable of handling such catastrophic injuries. Surgeons worked for hours. One of her feet was successfully reattached. The other could not be saved. The accident quickly spread across national headlines. Local news cameras crowded outside the hospital, while investigators cordoned off the Superman ride. Inspectors from the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, which oversaw amusement ride safety, examined the wreckage. They discovered that the steel cable had not been properly maintained. It showed clear signs of fraying and wear that had gone unnoticed or ignored. Further investigation revealed that the ride had not received adequate inspections in the months leading up to the accident. In fact, Kentucky's entire ride safety program had only a handful of inspectors responsible for overseeing thousands of rides across the state. The findings enraged the public. How could a major amusement park, operated by a large company like Six Flags, allow a ride to deteriorate to the point of catastrophic failure? Families who had assumed their children were safe on roller coasters and thrill rides were suddenly questioning the system meant to protect them. Caitlin's injury became a symbol of a larger failure in ride safety regulation. In the weeks after the accident, Kentucky Kingdom permanently closed the Superman Tower of Power. The ride was dismantled and removed from the park. Six Flags issued statements expressing sympathy for Caitlin and her family, but the damage was done. Lawsuits followed, alleging negligence in maintenance and inspection. Caitlin's parents argued that their daughter's injuries could have been prevented if Six Flags and state regulators had done their jobs. The case highlighted the tension between thrill ride marketing, pushing rides higher, faster, and more extreme, and the quiet, often overlooked responsibility of keeping those machines safe. The accident also spurred national debate about amusement ride safety. Regulations varied wildly from state to state. Some states, like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, had robust inspection programs with dedicated ride safety divisions. Others left oversight to small teams with limited resources. In Kentucky, responsibility for inspecting rides fell under the Department of Agriculture, which was already stretched thin managing farms and food programs. The Superman accident exposed just how underfunded and fragmented the system was. It raised the question, should amusement ride safety be regulated at the federal level? For Caitlin Lassiter, the aftermath was deeply personal. She faced years of surgeries, rehabilitation, and emotional trauma. She was only 13 years old when her life changed. She spoke publicly about her recovery, describing the pain and the long process of adapting to prosthetics. Her story resonated because it revealed the human cost behind the mechanical failure. It was not just about a broken ride. It was about a teenager whose summer outing turned into a lifelong struggle. The ride itself vanished, dismantled in the months after the accident. Where the towering Superman structure once stood, nothing remained. But the absence was its own reminder. Regular visitors to the park remembered the ride not for thrills, but for tragedy. Kentucky Kingdom itself closed in 2009, just 2 years later, after Six Flags entered bankruptcy and abandoned the property. The park would eventually reopen under new management, but the shadow of the Superman accident lingered. In the broader history of amusement park accidents, the Superman incident stood out because it happened in plain view, in a crowded park, and because its cause, cable failure, was something inspectors should have caught. It forced regulators and operators alike to rethink the balance between spectacle and safety. For parents, it was a chilling reminder that even trusted, long-running rides could fail catastrophically without warning. Caitlin's story continued in the courts and in her own efforts to recover. Over time, her case faded from national headlines, replaced by newer tragedies and debates. But for those who followed the investigation, the accident underscored a simple fact. Thrill rides are not inherently safe. They are machines subject to wear and neglect, and when oversight fails, the consequences fall hardest on unsuspecting riders. The Superman. Tower of Power was meant to thrill with the sensation of falling from the sky. Instead, it became a story of real-world ruin, where a snapped cable, ignored warnings, and failed inspections destroyed a young girl's life in seconds. It remains one of the most haunting examples of what can happen when the pursuit of excitement collides with the collapse of safety. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.